So it means the story sketch is the plan and the storyboard is the procedure.
Exactly, Teacher Rams.
Kasi maaari niyong maitanong na the same naman na idodrawing yung story, bakit pinaghiwalay pa itong dalawa?
Appreciate it. They are the reason why I exist and I am with you now.
That's right, Monsi. I'm thankful for that. Good day, learners. Once again, welcome to our School on Air and Animation. I am Teacher Ramz. To make our discussion more interesting, together with me, my virtual version.
Hello, I am Monzi, the virtual version of Teacher Rams. We are here, bringing you another learning session in the world of animation. Please join us to explore and discover new things.
And for today's topic, we'll be discussing about the process of traditional animation. You know, Monsi, when we say traditional animation, usually refers to animation hand-drawn on paper. It was the process used for most of the production throughout the 20th century.
Yes, Teacher Rams, that's the reason why I exist in this generation.
And for that, I am thankful because I met you and you are now my new partner in exploring your world, the animation. Okay, Monsi, before we start in our topic, sa lahat ng nanonood ngayon, please watch this video on how Walt Disney Cartoons are made.
From Hollywood comes the most exciting motion picture news of 1938. Walt Disney has completed and released his first full-length feature production, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, in Technicolor, the most daring adventure in screen entertainment since the birth of the motion picture. As its credit titles, longest in cinema history, flash across the nation's screens, audiences for the first time realize the tremendous amount of manpower required for the production of this epoch-making animated picture. The entirely new form of storytelling that already has captivated every man, woman, and child who has seen it. Just how was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs created? And how are the famous Disney short films made? To give you the answer, we take you behind the closed doors of the famed Walt Disney Studio in Hollywood. Doors usually barred to all visitors. During the past 3 years, the studio staff has grown from less than 300 to more than 700 artists and musicians. They worked in shifts, night and day, to complete this unique experiment in entertainment. Remember as a kid how you made your own movies by drawing little figures on the pages of a pad and flipping the pages to make the figures move? That's the basic principle behind animated pictures today. But that's not all there is to it. First, you need a story. Thinking up funny stories is the job of Walt Disney's writers, gag men, and sketch artists. After much trial and error, several hundred rough drawings illustrating the high points of each story are completed. Let's follow the story into conference, where Walt Disney and his hard-boiled directors look it over. Not a picture, long or short, goes into production without Walt's personal okay. Next, a director whips the script and dialogue into final form. Then he calls in his assistants, including his musical composer, and plans the score of the picture, timing out each scene carefully. He even acts out every move of the action, so that the men who work with him can visualize what the scene will look like on the screen. Now he sets his expert animators to work, the skilled artists who draw every movement in complete detail, just as you will see it in the theater. Each animator's drawing board is lighted from below. He looks through the paper at the character he has previously outlined and draws the next movement in correct position. This clever animator is using a mirror to capture a tricky facial expression like this. Let's move along to the test camera department. Here the animator's rough drawings are photographed in sequence, one at a time. This film is developed and returned to the animator, who checks to see how good it is by running it in a small projection machine called a moviola. In this moviola, as the animator runs his film backward and forward, we catch a graceful glimpse of the screen's newest heroine, Snow White herself. Now we're in one of the studio projection rooms, where Walt and his staff study the rough animation of a sequence about the 7 lovable little dwarfs. Once they are okayed, the thousands of pencil drawings go to the inking department. Here, hundreds of pretty girls, in a comfortable building all their own, well lighted, air-conditioned throughout, cover the drawings with sheets of transparent celluloids. Then they painstakingly trace every line of every drawing in ink, following exactly in every detail the original animation drawings. Now the picture moves into its final stage, color. In the studio paint laboratory, all colors used are made up from secret formulas. Expert chemists develop more than 1,500 different shades of color for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The inked celluloids next go to the painting department, where more pretty girls apply the final colors on the back. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs required 250,000 celluloids painted like this one. In another department of the big Disney studio, artists delicately paint the beautiful stage settings for the picture. These backgrounds are done in watercolor. Artists work for months on backgrounds like the interior of the Seven Dwarfs' cottage. But the colossal task isn't finished even yet. The celluloids and backgrounds must still be photographed by the master camera in Technicolor. Here the operator puts a Donald Duck celluloid on top of a background as the overhead camera exposes one frame of film. To photograph Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, this operation had to be repeated more than 500,000 times. Next, the film passes into the hands of technicians, and the sound effects are recorded. Finally, a symphony orchestra records the musical score, the hit tunes that will thrill listeners the world over.
Oh, it is an amazing works of the people behind the traditional animation. They spend a lot of time and money just to bring entertainment. An inspiring video especially to our learners teacher Ramz.
Yes, Monzi. And to our learners, just watch the full video. Just see the link in the description. Darating din ang araw na you can create your own animation. Now, let us start our discussion, Monzi. The first step in learning about animation is to know and understand the process involved in making an animated film. We must understand the importance of following the process and how to animate the scene. Nowadays, marami tayong makikita sa internet on how they do an animated film. But in general, we have 15 processes if we are talking about traditional animation. We have Monzi.
First we have story sketch, second is storyboard, third is recording, fourth is track breakdown, fifth is designs, sixth is story reel, seventh is line tests, eighth is cleanup, ninth is trace and paint, 10th is background, 11th is checking, 12th is final shoot, 13th is rushes, 14th is dubbing, and last is answer print.
Okay, first, let's talk about the story sketch. It is the first and the most important stage in the process of animation. Ito'y tinatawag din natin na film script, but it differs from live action film script. Should show the characters' attitudes, feelings, entertainment, expressions, type of actions, as well as telling the story of what is happening. The staff is usually an artist who has a special interest in illustration, design, appearance, and character. Okay, next is storyboard. Monzi?
Storyboard is a series of drawn images that graphically portrays the action described in the script. When a director works on the storyboard, deficiencies in the structure and format of the story are detected and corrected.
Monsi, the question is, what is the main difference between the story sketch and the storyboard? Kasi maaari niyong maitanong na the same naman na i-drawing yung story, bakit pinaghiwalay pa itong dalawa?
Teacher Ramz, a story sketch is a pre-visualization stage of an animation process. Since animation itself is more about visuals than words, story sketches are useful as visual expressions of the story or script. It helps to visualize the story, which can later be converted into a storyboard. Or we can say sketching your ideas and storyboarding your concept.
So it means the story sketch is the plan, and the storyboard is the procedure.
Exactly, Teacher Ramz.
Now, after storyboarding, next is recording.
In recording, animation relies totally on perfect synchronization of the picture to the soundtrack. Animator must receive the initial recorded track before beginning to draw. The animator will not be able to time the action accurately without it.
You know, Monzi, it is one of the exciting parts as I remembered before when my students practicing voice acting, kailangan yung emotions ng story ay mailabas sa boses para mabigyang buhay yung characters.
Exactly, Teacher Ramz. It is very important that the animators be able to see the attitudes and expressions when they close their eyes and listen to the voice. When the action is in sync with music, it is possible to record a simple guide track to indicate the essential beat and the basic melodies.
For that, I will show you some scenario in a recording session of a Frozen. Please watch this video.
For the first time in forever.
One thing you may not realize is just how personal the making of this movie really was.
He's just a bit of a fixer-upper.
Like, did you know that the songwriters are actually a husband and wife team, and that young Princess Anna is sung by their daughter?
Elsa? Do you want to build a snowman? It doesn't have to be a snowman.
Bob and Kristen's daughter, Katie, did the scratch voice for the little Anna, and my daughter did the scratch voice for the 9-year-old Anna.
Do you want to build a snowman?
And there was a sweet vulnerability and naivete and this just purity, and we wanted to capture that.
It gets a little lonely, all these empty rooms, just watching the hours tick by.
Sprightly. Especially for a man in heels. Wait, will we live here?
Here? Absolutely.
What? No. We could invite all 12 of your brothers to stay with us. Of course we have the room.
Wait.
I don't know, some of them must
Slow
have
down.
wives. And if they have kids, that would
no
be
one's
so much
brothers
fun.
are staying here.
It
No
would be
one is
so
getting
nice to have
married.
children around.
Another one, Monsi, I just want to share to our learners the some voice acting output of my student last school year. Please watch this video.
Remle, tigilan mo na yung pagiging masama mo.
Hindi mo kami matatalo, Power Rangers.
Ha! Malakas ako si Red Ranger! Tagabi mo to! Thunder Slash! Hiya!
Stop right there! I said stop right there! Move a muscle and I'll put a bullet in your head! If I stay here, where's the fun in that? Fun?
Mahal ko, masagana ngayon sa pagkain ng gitna ng dagat. Ito na ang hinihintay na pagkakataon nating mga tuloy upang magsilang ng bagong henerasyon ng mga batang sardinas.
Where am I? Don't worry, my dear. You're not dead. I believe you somehow managed to deep down into my subconscious. So, it's really you? Yes.
Oh, Doraemon, tulungan mo naman ako para hindi na ako ma-zero sa exam.
Apo, kunin mo nga ang aking gamot.
Mamaya po Lolo. May ginagawa pa ako. Hey lady, who are you? I am your friend. Long time ago. But I don't remember you.
Now after recording, the next stage is track breakdown. Monzi?
In track breakdown, after the soundtrack has been made, an editor assembles it into the precise working length of the film and then breaks down the track. A cartoon cutter's job is concerned with keeping, marking, and storing all of the simplest film with 4 tracks, 2 dialogues, sound effects, and music.
And breaking down a soundtrack is not too difficult once you get used to it. It does, however, take a lot of concentration and a lot of time. Paano ba ginagawa ang track breakdown? Okay, once you have your soundtrack recorded, edited, and properly timed out, you can then go about the process of breakdown. Breakdown simply put is finding out exactly what sound is being made on every frame. Ito yung pinaghihiwalay natin yung music background, the sound effects, at yung dialogues ng characters natin. Dito na din pumapasok yung tinatawag nating exposure sheets na ginagamit ng mga animators. Don't worry, we'll be having a separate discussion about on how to use the exposure sheets dahil di lang siya useful sa traditional animation but also in computer and 2D animation. Para magkaroon kayo ng idea, please watch this video.
Exposure sheet is a tool used in animation which has instructions to be followed for a particular scene, notes about the breakdown of a dialogue, timing of the action, and additional notes if required. It's kind of a map which everyone working on the scene can refer to, hence acting as a communication tool between animators, compositors, and others. Even if working alone, exposure sheets usage makes it efficiently simple to plan out a scene and execute it with clarity. To demonstrate this, let's try animating a dialogue. Let's take this dialogue for example.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
Now listen to this dialogue carefully, over and over again multiple times, so you get a hang of which parts of the dialogue have been emphasized or said very subtly. With that observation, start visualizing the action and how the character is going to perform it. Make thumbnails, try different approaches, play with the staging, camera angle, acting choices. Once the scene is clear in your mind and nicely sketched out, we can move on to time it out.
Next process is design. Monzi?
Yes, teacher Ramz. During the track breakdowns, the director selects one or more file designers to produce visual interpretations of all the characters featured in the film. After approval, each character is drawn from a multitude of angles and placed on a single sheet of paper, called the model sheet.
Okay, Monzi, when we say model sheets, ito yung tinatawag nating collections of characters drawing in different angles and sizes, placed on a single sheets of paper. So we have here an example of model sheets. So in short, in this process, yung design, ito yung process na gumagawa tayo ng model sheets that will serve as a reference to all animators. The background styling for all the main sequences of the film is produced. Okay, next stage is the story reel. Under the supervision of the director, using the bar sheets in the storyboard, the layout artist proceeds with the story reel of the whole film. In traditional animation, like a reel is produced. So when we say like a reel, Monzi?
When we say like a reel, it is a filmed storyboard, which can be projected in synchronization with the final soundtrack. Like a reel is derived from the German maker of cameras called Leica, which was used to make filmed storyboards in the early animation days. During the process, changes in both sound and picture are made. Animation directors use this to watch the completed, edited movie and make any adjustments before moving on to final animation.
Okay, thank you, Monzi. During the process, changes in both sounds and pictures are made. Animation directors use this to watch the completed, edited movie and make any adjustment before moving on the final animation. Para magkaroon kayo ng idea kung ano yung Leica reel or story reel, please watch this video.
The next piece of this process is to make what we in the biz call a story reel of your planned video. The story reel is a recorded rough draft of your script before the real work of animating begins. We make these by reading our script aloud alongside the pictures we've created. This is an opportunity to see if your vision works. Do the images support the script? Have you planned too much, too little? This rough draft will help you test your ideas. A traditional story reel is a series of photos that are added to the narration, like this.
Yeah!
But to keep this as simple as possible, we're going to do it all as a single video, like this.
A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to reap.
Once again, a 30-second animation will be about 4 to 10 shots, so you'll need a couple of blank split scripts to draw out all of these shots. Find the video app on your smartphone and shoot each picture box on your split script as you read the corresponding script in time with the images. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is me making my story.
Animal roots. I fall short. If there's only time for everything, why does it keep running out? Is that the joke?
And here's a taste of what my finished story reel looks like.
Is this a joke? God judging? Testing?
Notice how it's only over the pictures, not the words. Here's an example of what not to do.
War and peace. But what do we get out of life?
This way, you're getting a good feel for what the final animation will look like. To give you some context, the final animation using this story reel as a guide will look like this.
Is this a joke? God judging? Testing? Why can I imagine the ineffable, the inconceivable, but only create the smallest taste of it? I'm barely beyond my animal roots. I fall short. If there's a time for everything, why does it keep running out? Is that the joke?
Your completed story reel should be, surprise, 30 seconds long. You may need to do some editing of your script if you're finding it takes longer than 30 seconds to record this story reel. If it's longer, just be aware you'll end up having to animate a lot more, which will take more time. If it's shorter, the opposite is true. Duh. If it's longer, just be aware you'll end up having to animate a lot more. Just felt I needed to say that twice. Record the video 3 times and use the best recording. Remember to read it confidently. Positioning yourself so you can read the words but have only the images in frame is a little tricky, but I'm sure you can figure it out. Once you're done, the goal is to match your finished animation to your story reel. If your story reel doesn't make sense or isn't funny, the animation won't be either. So go back to the drawing board and keep working on the story reel. This is why we make it.
Next stage is the line test. After the approved Leica reel from the director and producer, the animators finally become involved in the film and begin to produce a line test of each scene. It is a process used to check hand-drawn frames prior to them being used for final artwork. Frames are captured either via a video camera, frame by frame, or by scanning them into a computer. And, Monzi?
Inline tests. The resulting sequence allows the animator to assess how well the sequence is flowing. If the result is unsatisfactory, then the animator can simply redraw, add or delete frames, and then create another line test.
Next stage is cleanup. It is a part of the workflow in the productions of hand-drawn animation. Ito yung process na gumagawa tayo ng final drawings gaya ng nakikita natin sa finished film. Cleanups is generally done on a new sheets of paper. Para magkaroon kayo ng idea on how they do cleanup drawings, please watch this video.
Hi, thank you for joining me on learning how to clean up your animation drawings. So first, let's take a look at the kind of equipment we need to do animation cleanup. I have here my animation desk, have an animation disc in the center, and it is backlit. That is ideal for doing animation cleanup. Now, if you're on a budget or you're a student, you can go down to your local craft store, pick up this light box for about $50, and you can go online and pick up this round peg bar for about $5. Now, I used animation bond like this. It's pretty expensive. It runs about $30 to $40 per ream. So again, if you're on a budget, you can use standard copy paper and a 3-hole punch and this round peg bar, and they'll work great together. So now let's put our drawings down on our peg bar and let's take a look. All right, this is a fairly typical animation rough drawing. It's very sketchy. We've got lines that are kind of going on top of each other, making the drawing very muddied. So it's hard to tell once we get down to in-betweening where these lines are coming from and where they're going to go. So essentially, we are going to trace this drawing with very precise lines so that way it helps us for the in-betweening process. So let's get started with that. We're gonna take our blank sheet, place it right over the top of this on our peg bar. And the first things you want to do is make sure to write down the drawing number. So if we drop our drawings, we know what in sequence this drawing goes. And we also want to copy this little chart up here in the corner called the timing chart. Now you don't have to trace it exactly, but you want to make sure to keep it accurate to the original so that way we know down the line how we're going to use this chart. Now I'll talk more about timing charts in the how to animate your animation drawings in a later video, but right now let's talk about how to do cleanup. Now, the very specific technique that you're gonna use for animation cleanup is keeping your pencil sharp. You can use a number 2 pencil or a mechanical pencil like I like to use, but keeping it sharp is key. So for my mechanical pencil, I have my scrap sheet here, and I'll scribble and turn my pencil in order to kind of get a nice point on my lead. And once you have that, then we can head into doing our animation cleanup. Now looking at this drawing, we want to use the natural mechanics of our wrist to do these lines. We can use our fingers, but those are very fine muscles and it's harder to control rather than just the mechanics of moving our wrist. So let's get in here and we're going to use that wrist action and we're going to make short and confident bursts. You're going to want to make sure to taper your line so that way the edges are very thin and the middle is very thick. And they're going to string together to make it look like a long, continuous, cleaned up line. Now you'll notice that as we get to this section, we're going to hit a kind of line that goes against our natural arc of our wrist. So this is why animators work on a disc. We can turn and then continue to use that wrist action. It's very convenient. Now you can do this on your light box at home. You can still turn your drawings on your animation peg bar and make that wrist action work. Now, once you've hit all parts of the drawing, you'll have a nice cleaned up drawing with very clean lines, and you'll be ready to move on to your next cleanup drawing.
Okay, the next stage is trace and paint. Monzi?
Yes, teacher Ramz. Next is trace and paint. After the cleaned up line test is finally approved, each drawing is transferred to a thin sheet of celluloid or acetate and painted in colors of the original design. Animation applications can easily do this. Artist paints the cell in opaque colors on the reverse side to the drawing, thus keeping the paint from going over the lie and producing flatter, smoother colors.
So in short, sa trace and paint, ito yung process na binibigyan na ng kulay yung mga drawings. In traditional, mano-mano sila na nagkukulay, but nowadays, no, in 2D or 3D animations, we have different software on how to trace and paint our drawings. Next is background. Another team of artists produces the background while the animation is being traced and painted, responsible for everything behind or sometimes in front of the moving characters that do not move. Background must be identical to the original film design. Next is Monzi.
Next is checking. After the finished animation are completed, they are forwarded to the checker who makes sure that everything is correctly drawn, traced, painted and prepared for the cameraman who is to finally film it. Checker must be efficient in examining incomplete or incorrect output produced.
The next stage is the final shoot, the final stage in the actual filming procedure related to the artwork. After the checker's approval, it will be passed on the cameraman to shoot the complete scene. Para magkaroon kayo ng idea kung paano ginagawa ang final shoot sa traditional animation, please watch this video.
Actually, the pre-feature cartoon camera was fairly simple in construction and operation, and generally very satisfactory. Here, a Mickey Mouse short is being put on film. Mickey has been inked and painted on transparent sheets of celluloid. This happens to be a panorama effect where the character will walk in one place and the background keeps moving behind him to create the illusion. Each time a new cell of Mickey is photographed, the background must be moved a fraction of an inch. Photographing each one of these celluloids of Mickey and background makes a single frame of motion picture film. And here's how the action looks on the screen. The problem was how to take a painting and make it behave like a real piece of scenery under the camera. The trouble was we were photographing a flat two-dimensional background. So we set about making plans and blueprints for a new cartoon camera that would overcome this. The different elements in the scene were separated according to their varying distances from the viewer. This put the moon on a plane farthest away from the camera. With our original picture broken down in this manner, it is possible to control the relative speed with which each individual part of it moves to or away from the camera. But the moon remains absolutely still, and so it will always remain the same, neither growing nor shrinking in size. Of course, our cartoon camera does not shoot sideways, but is placed above and shoots downward toward the drawings. Since this new camera used many planes, we called it the multiplane camera. Actually, the pre-feature cartoon camera was fairly simple in construction and operation, and generally very satisfactory. Here, a Mickey Mouse short is being put on film. Mickey has been inked and painted on transparent sheets of celluloid. This happens to be a panorama effect where the character will walk in one place and the background keeps moving behind him to create the illusion. Each time a new cell of Mickey is photographed, the background must be moved a fraction of an inch. Photographing each one of these celluloids of Mickey and background makes a single frame of motion picture film. And here's how the action looks on the screen. The problem was how to take a painting and make it behave like a real piece of scenery under the camera. The trouble was we were photographing a flat two-dimensional background.
After final shoot stage, the next stage is rushes. Ito yung tinitingnan yung mga posibleng mali. Kapag mayroon, the problem must be identified and rectified and have the scene reshoot. Kapag okay naman, the rushes are cut by the editor into the final film, then replacing the existing line test scenes. Next stage is dubbing. Ito yung process na kino-combine lahat ng soundtracks into a single track which will be painted on the film along with the pictures. And also, Monzi?
Yes, Teacher Ramz, the dialogue, sound effects, and music should be dubbed together without losing any of the special values that each has brought to the picture.
And of course, Monzi, for the perfect synchronization with the action, the editor and director will go to the dubbing theater where the voice track, music, and sound effects are all mixed in one complete soundtrack. And the last stage, Monzi?
And the last stage is answer print. This is the final stage where sound and picture are merged in one piece of film. It is now ready for viewing as this serves as the final product. It may be a 30-second animation or longer. The process of animation should follow certain structured procedures.
And Monzi, if these procedures are carefully followed, lahat ay magiging okay ang flow. In contrast, failure to respect the guidelines can be very costly in time and money. Okay, Monzi, that concludes our discussion. Again, animation is a costly procedure in both time and money. If the audience only knew all that is involved in any animated productions, the respect, probably one of the most creative art forms, would increase.
And also, Teacher Ramz, the efforts of the people behind this are highly appreciated. They are the reason why I exist and I am with you now.
That's right, Monzi. I'm thankful for that, especially on a large-scale production team that includes a director, producer, a number of animators and assistant animators, team of in-betweeners, clean-up artists, tracers, painters, and renderers, special effects artists, plus several checkers, editors, and cameramen. Okay, Monzi, it's time to say goodbye to our learners. Once again, this has been your teacher Ramz.
And I am Monzi. Until next time.
And don't forget, be inspired, be creative, be technical. Good day and keep safe.